Welcome into the Sportsmemo betting podcast for February 8th, Friday edition, breaking down the Saturday college basketball card with our college basketball expert, Robbie Vino. Rob, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am good today, Drew. How about yourself? Because I spoke to you earlier, we had a little difficulty with wind issues here in the mid-Atlantic earlier today. Blew our power out and the internet service, so we're backed up a little bit here this afternoon, but ready to go with this Saturday look ahead to college basketball.
Yeah, and I know you got your numbers out and posting your numbers for tomorrow's action, and we'll go over those, compare them to Ken Palm's, and see where these opening lines come out. We're talking it's about 3:30 Eastern time on Friday. The lines are not out yet, so we're just going with kind of what we think the lines will be, and if we're going to fire away on these games. We got 5 big games marked. Thank you for reaching out via Twitter on the games you guys wanted to hear about. We'll hit on all of those as well. But Robbie, starting off in the Big 12, we got 635-636 TCU Iowa State. Ken Palm showing 77-68 Iowa State winning at home. That would give us a total of 145. How would you look to bet the Horned Frogs and Cyclones?
Well, it's kind of tough at this point in time, Drew, to bet the Horned Frogs at all unless you're getting an excessive amount of points. A couple of things here. We saw midweek against Oklahoma State where TCU actually trailed in that game late, pulled it out of the fire, win 70-68. But overall, just to look at this team, since we have a big enough sample size since Jalen Fisher's been hurt, you can see it's causing problems for TCU now, especially on the offensive end, and they're breaking down on the defensive end. Not that Jamie Dixon's team was ever an elite defensive squad in the Big 12, but they're breaking down a little bit more. And I think that it's kind of twofold. Point guard Alex Robinson just bears a ton on his shoulders how to in order to run that offense efficiently. And we're in the almost into the middle of February now, Drew. He's played an awful lot of games here without Fisher trying to run the show. Desmond Bane's a nice three-point shooter. Actually led the conference in three-point shooting last year. But, the ball handling responsibility falling all and the creating responsibility falling all on Robinson. I think he might be tiring here. That's not a good sign against Iowa State, which is loaded with backcourt strength. The only thing Iowa State really lacks is rim protection as they head toward the conference tournament and their NCAA spot in their tournament. I think they're the best team in the conference right now. They're getting better while TCU's getting worse. And I think more importantly for Iowa State, the explosiveness of that offense that was expected of them almost immediately when Wigginton returned to the lineup. It didn't happen right off the bat, but it's starting to happen now. So many guys on the floor whenever you look at Iowa State that are capable of scoring. I think it's too much for TCU here. I think they might be overwhelmed. My power ratings made this game Iowa State minus 10. If you see something in that vicinity home at Ames, I think that they would be a good side to play. Ever since they played Kansas State in the game where Dean Wade returned, and that game was at Hilton Coliseum, and K-State totally shut Iowa State down. Ever since then, Iowa State's been on an ascension, and I don't think it's going to stop here. I think they're in pretty good shape in this game tomorrow.
Robbie, we got 643, 644 in the Big Ten, Minnesota at Michigan State. Ken Palm showing Michigan State as a hefty favorite here if the betting markets go off of his numbers, seeing 15 actually. He's projecting Michigan State 80. Minnesota Golden Gophers only 65. That would give us a 145 total here, Robbie. But if those were the numbers, would you look to get involved with the Golden Gophers and Spartans?
Well, it's hard for me, at least, where we are right now, Drew, to get involved with either side in this game. Now, my number doesn't come that far off of Ken Palm. I make Michigan State a 14-point favorite in this game. I think that's about where they'll come. But they're on 3 consecutive losses now. The other night, I think you and I talked about their game against Illinois earlier this week, and Michigan State was off of 2 losses at that point in time. Remember the Purdue game on a Sunday where they got blown out, then they followed it up with a home loss to Indiana, then come back to play Illinois on the road, I expected Michigan State to give Tom Izzo some sort of effort. They gave no effort. And they were blank in the first half. Illinois ran out to an early lead. Illinois extended the lead. Second half, Michigan State showed life, came roaring back. But once they took the lead, they let Illinois take it back, and Illinois got to the finish line. So I don't know what to make of Michigan State right now, a team that no less than 10 days ago, let's say 12 days ago, a good number of people had projected in their Final Four. Now all of a sudden there's question marks surrounding this team, and it's just funny that they've gone sour so quickly. So it's very difficult to lay double digits because you could see either way here, right, Drew? You could see a Michigan State at home in East Lansing against a Minnesota team that, while they're talented, they haven't been great on the road. They're much better at home in Williams than they are on the road. And you could see Michigan State really revving it up and blowing this team out. On the other hand, Minnesota's played a little bit better ball as of late. I was critical of them about 2 weeks ago, saying they had more talent than what has shown up in their straight-up and ATS records. They've played pretty well since that point in time. You could see them keeping it close if Michigan State really is in a downward spiral. Boy, I don't know what to make of it, Drew. I looked to see, and we'll see what the number comes as far as total is concerned, but I had a reaction toward maybe I want to play over here because Minnesota is so up-tempo and Michigan State's not adverse to up-tempo. But then, we've seen enough Tom Izzo history to where we could see a big defensive effort tomorrow after what happened at Illinois the other night. So there's way too many contradictory arguments here for me to pick a side or total, unless the number was something that just stuck out like a sore thumb that had to be bet, but I don't think it will be either side or total. So interesting game. The old rule, Drew, we don't have to play every game, and some games you use just to watch and react for down the road. I think that's how we have to use this game between Minnesota and Michigan State tomorrow.
Yeah, this one in the Big Ten, it's a tricky handicap, no doubt about it, because, I'm of the camp, Michigan State's the more talented team, but, have been in a minor free fall here, and with a lot of things in life, and sports betting's definitely one of them. I just don't like that profile of picking the spot where the team is going to bounce back. Like, they got to win this game or bounce back. No, they don't. And just like in the stock market, it's a buy low. Well, it hasn't hit that bottom yet and started to rebound. That's just not a profile I think is a winning long-term bet type. So could they win? Could they blow them out by 20? Absolutely. But it's a game I'm not going to bet on. That's for sure. We got 651-652 Villanova Marquette. Marquette 72, Villanova 70. That's the Ken Palm numbers. So that would give us a total of 142 here, Robbie. How would you look to bet this one?
Yeah, interesting if we go off the other night. St. John's and Shamari Pons go into Marquette after already having defeated Marquette 89-69 the first time around. So you had a revenge factor on Marquette's side. And Shamari Pons hits a game-winning layup. Once again, Marquette loses as about a 6.5-point choice against St. John's the other night, but a 1-point victory for the Red Storm. They go out of there with the win. So Marquette in this situation is certainly going to be, you take a really good team, and very seldom would I bet against them to lose back-to-back home court games. This is what we're looking at here with Marquette. So back-to-back home court off a loss, I think situationally favors Marquette. Villanova got the advantage the other night of playing a really, depth-shy Creighton team. Creighton without their top two guards in that particular contest the other night. And Villanova still was life and death into overtime in that contest against Creighton before they finally pulled it out. So Villanova, while they've had separation power ratings-wise in the Big East from the rest of the pack, not that much separation from Marquette in the power ratings, but those two and then everybody else really is clumped into a pile here. I think we're going to see a very, very competitive game, Drew, and I would look toward the Marquette side. I think Villanova is a team that my analysis of them is they're on top of the Big East this year because the Big East, while it's very, very competitive from 2 to 8, the league as a whole is really down this year. When I look at my power ratings numbers, there's just not the number of teams up there in the power ratings that there have been in the past. Maybe Xavier's demise a big part of that. So Villanova, to me, an extremely vulnerable team on the road. It's a jump shooting team that can be limited. You can go cold on the road. And I think, of course, you'll get the best out of Marcus Howard in a game like this. So interested to see where the odds maker sets this number, because for me, it would be a play on Marquette. I think at home, my numbers make them -2. If I see them as a -2 favorite in this game, I would probably have a buy signal on Marquette. Also might look at the over here, Drew. I think you're going to get an open style game with both of these teams, and dependent upon where the number comes, you might have said it already. I missed what Ken Pom has for the number. I'm looking right here. He's looking at 142. To me, 142 in this game, very, very achievable to go over.
Okay, leaning towards the over in Villanova Marquette. Guys, we do have the coupon code for the podcast, CBB29. That would give you Robbie Vino or any handicapper on Sportsmemo their 3-day all-access for just $29. It's CBB29 at checkout, and that will give you actually more than just college basketball. So if the handicapper you choose has some NBA, NHL, whatever sports they handicap, heck, AAF football starting this weekend, right, Robbie?
It is Saturday night, and you get a CBS game. Get a lot of television coverage of this league.
And we'll actually cover some of that after the next two games on the college basketball slate. But guys, the coupon code is CBB29 at checkout. Less than $10 a day for premium plays from whichever handicapper you choose. Robbie Vino is a great choice. We got back to the Big 12, Robbie. 707-708. Kansas State at Baylor. Looks like Ken Pom projecting Baylor 63, Kansas State 58. D. Wade being back. Ken Pom doesn't really care with this number. I doubt we'll see a Baylor Bears -5 at home, but heck, we might, Robbie. Where do you put it at?
I show Baylor -2, so significantly different than Ken Pom. Interesting race now created inside the Big 12, Drew, with Kansas State's win the other night. They're now the first place team inside the Big 12. Baylor, one game behind in the loss column, and with a win here, they could shoot up the ladder. And also, if Iowa State wins and Kansas State loses, Iowa State would be your new leader. So there's a logjam up top here between the top three teams. And I think situationally, this one has to favor Baylor. If you're a situational guy, you look at what happened in Manhattan, Kansas the other night. Does K-State get off of cloud 9 quickly enough to get to Waco and play a team that's angry off of a loss to Texas? A game in which Baylor once again shot well, but they were outshot. Texas, which normally is not an offensive production type team under Shaka Smart, at least not this group. They've had their moments. The Georgia game, I recall, in the SEC Big 12 Challenge, where Texas scored a lot of points. But they did a good job shooting the basketball against Baylor the other night. Couple of notes here, Drew, that correlate with injuries to both of these teams. Baylor was 8-1 against the spread in Big 12 action before they lost to Texas the other night. They're now 8-2 against the spread in the Big 12. But better than that, they were 6-0 straight up and against the spread ever since their starting center Tristan Clark went down, which, and logically you would have thought that Baylor, a team that was not shooting well from beyond the arc at that point in time, and they had, some 16, 17, 18 games where the numbers just didn't show them to be a good shooting team. You'd have thought the loss of Clark, who was their leading scorer, would absolutely signal the demise of Baylor. Didn't happen. Scott Drew turned it around. 4-guard offense. All of a sudden, we know how to shoot. It started with the Oklahoma State game, and they ran off 6 straight covers until that Texas game the other night. So I don't think we want to leave Baylor short at this point in time, especially at home. We'll see if K-State can make the road trip off of the win. It's going to be a high-intensity game because both of these teams know what's at stake here. You're jockeying for position inside the Big 12. I think they match up pretty well, with the exception that maybe Baylor doesn't have a guy for Dean Wade. But the rest of the court, I think Baylor matches up real well with K-State, and certainly Kansas State put up a lot of points the other night not necessarily their game. The 63-58 is more like what Ken Palm is indicating is more like what K-State would like to play. We'll see how it goes. I show Baylor -2. I think situationally they would be a good side.
Robbie, we got the new football league. We'll break it down here at the end of the podcast. But first up, we want to finish off the college basketball slate. We got Duke, Virginia, and guys, remember the coupon code CBB29 at checkout for 3-day all-access Robbie Vino or any handicapper of your choice at sportsmemo.com for just $29, 3-day all-access, less than $10 a day. That coupon code is CBB29 at checkout. Heading to the ACC, Robbie, 7-13, 7-14 Duke at Virginia. Rematch of a great heavyweight match earlier in the season in ACC play. Ken Palm showing Virginia 70, Duke 65. So seeing UVA -5 with a total of 135. I doubt this number gets that high, but who knows, Robbie? What would you bet seeing Virginia -5?
If I saw Virginia -5, I'd probably be like the rest of the free world and go ahead and take 5. I don't particularly think it's going to come out as or open as Virginia -5. I think this game will open more in the vicinity of Virginia -1, in which case, revenge for Virginia certainly is an angle. They went to Duke and lost the first time around. But I think more than just revenge, Drew, because that term gets overused and overplayed, and it doesn't necessarily stand up 100% of the time like anything else in sports handicapping when you get to the final results. I think what is more important here is the fact that what Virginia excels at is really what went wrong in the first game away from home. It's one of the best three-point shooting teams in the nation. They are the best three-point shooting team in ACC play. But in the game against Duke in Durham, they go 3 for 17 from beyond the arc, shoot 17.6%. You can't expect that to happen again at home in Charlottesville this time. I think the three-point percentage comes up. Another thing that went wrong, of course, Virginia, we know that pack line defense. They're noted for their defense, one of the best defensive teams in the nation for quite some time now. But again, they allowed Duke to shoot very, very well from the floor that night, 51% overall. And not too many people get to 51% against Virginia. Have to assume that after Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett were an absolute two-man wrecking crew with 57 of the 72 points that day, and Virginia will have a little something extra just to cool those numbers down a bit. You can't stop those guys, but maybe 57 combined goes down to 47 here in Charlottesville. I think Virginia is going to be well prepared. I see them as a legitimate threat to Duke when conference tournament time comes, as many do. But in this situation, I mean, the difference between -1 and -5 is night and day, just on value alone. I think that Virginia will win the game, and if I get something in the area of -1, I would go ahead and play Virginia here. The first game got to 142 for a total, which shows you that Duke pretty much had tempo in their favor. And, of course, like I said, Duke shot the ball really well. 142 is high for a Virginia game. We'll see if it gets up there again.
Robbie, great stuff in the college basketball betting markets. Guys, remember the coupon code CBB29 at checkout for Robbie Vino's 3-day all-access. Can use that on any handicapper as well. Less than $10 a day. Coupon code CBB29 at checkout. Robbie, let's talk this new football league real quick. Week 1 starts tomorrow, seeing Atlanta Legends, Orlando Apollos, San Diego Fleet, San Antonio Commanders. Some of these names are kind of cool. It's just cool to see new football, in my opinion. Low totals here, Robbie. Not a total over 45, so more like or at least projecting more of an NFL-style game rather than, say, a up-and-down CFB type of game. Also noticing, and this is just blimp view, I haven't broken down the games necessarily, too deep, but not even a 6 out there, and I doubt that holds true. Just thinking a new league, new teams, they don't know each other. I doubt that, comes to fruition with a lot of very competitive games. I think there could be value out here. I could be wrong, but I would guess at least 1, probably more like 2, heck, maybe 3, turn into, more than touchdown finishes as far as one team beating the other by more than a touchdown or so. Would you agree with me? And I guess have at it as far as which games you want to talk about.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Drew. I think we'll see, there's only 4 games, but I do think that there'll be some scores that certainly exceed what the odds maker has out there for opening numbers. But the odds makers are in a jam. What are they going to throw up there? They really don't know, right? So you have to make kind of a competitive line and see if anybody's been doing the studying and take small limits and let the line move. It's interesting when you talked about the totals too, Drew, because I saw numbers when they first came out from BetDSI that showed most totals between the 44 and 45 range, 45, 46. And then I saw totals out of the Westgate where they were up to 53, 54. So I wonder if, things have been pushed by small amounts of money or whatever we're going to see for true openers when other books come along and decide to open these games. Right now, I would say this league is designed to grab some eyeballs. Not only for kids to get to the NFL, but for viewership. And in that realm, when you look at the head coaches in this league, when you look at the offensive coordinators in this league, and when you look at the scrimmages, each team had one scrimmage that they played. But there's a lot of college offense in this league. And we're going to see the ball winged around a little bit by mostly when you talk about Mike Martz and you talk about Steve Spurrier and Hugh Freeze being an offensive coordinator with Arizona. The league is littered with offensive guys and offensive systems designed to go quicker and play a little bit up tempo. So whether or not they can execute it with only with 3 weeks of practice and one scrimmage remains to be seen, because you can go at tempo all you want and not go anywhere on the field, get your defense into trouble. So it'll be interesting to look. I think right now, if I had to make a choice, the odds makers have set future book odds. I think a sneaky long shot here, I saw 10-1 would be the San Diego team with Mike Martz. And I think if we're looking from the favorites perspective or the upper tier, I think Steve Spurrier's Orlando team, just based on the amount of speed that's on that football team, they'd probably be a choice as well. But Dennis Erickson's got a nice team from what I've read in Salt Lake City. So it'll be an interesting league for sure. But I think that gap in totals is what I need to be solved here before I go ahead and see how I'm going to play these things.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And as far as the totals go, I mean, I just pulled it up from Forbes, so that could be off. And by the way, guys, we're just kind of going off the cuff here talking about this league. I'm interested in betting it, Robbie. I haven't yet. Are you going to release plays and bet them?
If we get enough universal lines out there where I know that guys can get the plays in, then I will. We'll wait and see what happens here tonight if we can get some numbers. I was planning on releasing plays for tomorrow's action and Sunday's action, so hopefully we will get those numbers. I think an important point that I might have skipped over here, Drew, too, is that these teams, this league is regionalized. They have a pool regionally that they can choose players from, so you'll notice like Alabama, I believe, has 8 guys. The University of Alabama has 8 guys on the Birmingham team, and you can go on the internet and see what regionally they are allowed to pick from. But that does play into it as well. You'll recognize a lot of college names here. That if you watch a lot of college football, Mike Singletary, of course, the head coach at Memphis. So each team has their own
Mike
little
Singletary, huh?
Yeah, Mike Singletary can't have it, right? Can't win with him.
Can't win with him. It's one of the best quotes out there, man.
Hopefully he's got a few of those that he can win with in this league.
Hopefully he does. Well, who was he talking about, by the way? It was like a tight end or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Vernon Davis.
Hopefully he's not on the team.
Yeah, threw him right off the team, off the field. Yeah, that was one of the best ever. So, like I say, it's got a lot of NFL flavor to it. It's got a lot of college flavor to it. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement built around it. But don't be surprised, Drew. Like I say, that this league wants exposure. They want some eyeballs. My feeling on that, just personal feeling on that, always is that they like to create offense to get eyeballs. And therefore, I think some of this college stuff. I think I told you before, Steve Spurrier, all he did was rename his Florida offense and add a couple of things in. In fact, not a couple of things. His wife was quoted as saying that Steve Spurrier has new plays drawn up on paper laying all over their bedroom floor. So Spurrier extremely excited to be back. Ripped himself for the way he coached South Carolina at the end, said he turned into more of a delegator than a hands-on guy. He's been very hands-on with this offense and changed the name from Fun and Gun to Sun and Gun for Orlando. So a lot to look forward to here. I think it'll be, the talent pool, it's lesser than what we find in the NFL. It's kind of that medium between college football and NFL. It's kind of that AAA type of talent.
That's interesting. You bring up Steve Spurrier. That could be a betting angle here to be betting on Orlando because just a little tidbit here. My aunt went to high school and is good friends with Steve Spurrier's wife, and she's big into sports, kind of one of the wives that's like, maybe like a best friend of sort and in on part of his profession anyway. And she said that same exact thing. At Florida, he was hands-on, into it. South Carolina in the beginning, and then he just kind of phased out a little bit. And he did regret that a lot. So if he, I haven't even thought to look into that, but that could be a heck of a little tidbit there on betting on Orlando, Robbie.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I've read, rejuvenated at practices, and like I say, to go to the extent where he's drawing up new plays, and he himself said it, Drew. There's an article online where you can go ahead and see where he just absolutely rips himself for taking the CEO position at South Carolina and delegating, and thought he just lost touch with the football team, and that's why he stepped down. He's happy to get this chance, even at his age, to go ahead, and I think he's got some, unresolved things here that he wants to fix. So Orlando, certainly one of your early favorites listed by bookmakers to win the entire thing. I think that's all guesswork as well, but Steve Spurrier does have a really an extreme group of speedy people on the offensive side, so you can expect him to throw the old football around like he did at Florida.
Well, great stuff as always, Robbie. Well, we'll keep this AAF on tap for Friday's podcast going forward, if that's what the people want. But Robbie, we got the coupon code CBB29 at checkout. Robbie Vino or any handicappers, 3-day all access. You'll get all the sports that they release in the weekend, less than $10 a day. That's CBB29 at checkout for the 3-day all access. CBB29. Robbie, any closing words here? What's on tap for this weekend for you?
Yeah, real quick, Drew, there's some injury situations. We talked about Creighton missing their top two guards. Please look into that before you do anything with Creighton. I think they play Seton Hall tomorrow. Seton Hall could be a look. But Virginia Tech, one team I'll leave everybody with here. Virginia Tech without point guard Justin Robinson for a third straight game, 1-1 without him. But I don't know, Drew. Going forward, I don't know that they'll be the same team without him, and he's listed as out indefinitely now. Could be a problematic injury for Virginia Tech, a team that was inside my top 10 power rating-wise. We'll see how they fare tomorrow at Clemson.
All right, Robbie, look out for that. The Creighton one especially. I think I'll be involved in that game in some form or fashion. But for Robbie Vino, I'm Drew Martin. Guys, we'll be back on Monday with the Sports Memo Betting Podcast. Best of luck with your bets this weekend. Be safe.